Brewers still have some spots that are up for grabs and some crowded spots. You wouldn't think that there would be really some players on this team that might not see playing time. Good players, too. So I think we might see a trade or two yet before opening day. We'll get to all that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, it's the week where spring training is opening. Lots of Brewers news, hopefully, here in the next several weeks. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But it's just great that spring training is finally here. This is probably the fastest offseason I can remember. Fastest offseason. Some moves made here in the last couple of weeks. The Brandon Woodruff thing right around Thanksgiving. But have the Brewers gotten better or worse? I do think that they are a well-stocked team in a few different areas, which leads me to believe I think there's going to be a trade. How you doing, everybody? Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you all you everydayers for joining me on Locked On Brewers throughout this winter as we continue to plow through and get ready for opening day, which is coming up next month. Do you believe that? We haven't really even had a winter in Wisconsin, really. We had winter like around a couple of weeks ago, mid-January, and then like Halloween, we had a lot of snow. Other than that, haven't had to do a lot of shoveling, and that's a good thing. But looking forward to definitely baseball season starting here in a couple of weeks. And this show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, make every moment more. New customers join today. You'll get $150 in bonus bets. Your first bet is $5 or more. You'll win. You'll get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com/lockdown to get started today. Hope you took advantage of McCaffrey scoring that touchdown. I said he was going to score a touchdown. Kelsey over the receiving yards. Gave that one as well. You find us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. And, of course, our YouTube page, our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell alert you every time we drop an episode. And set those alerts on your downloads too, your audio downloads of this show, wherever you get a podcast. Set your alerts there so you'll be alerted every time we drop an episode, because they'll be coming quickly, and a lot of them here in the next month as we ramp up to opening day. Yeah, I do think the Brewers are going to make a move or two. I really do. But I want to start with the starting rotation, first of all. The starting rotation, MLB.com today sent out like number one storylines going into spring training. And for the Brewers, they talked about the starting rotation, which I think has taken a significant hit. I do. Compared to a year ago, you had Burns and Woodruff at the top of that rotation, and now the Brewers' number one starter is Freddie Peralta. Okay, Freddie moves up from 3 to 1. That's a significant jump on a team coming back with hopes of repeating as division champs and possibly further. So we're resting our hopes on a guy, Freddie Peralta, who I like, and he had some solid flashes last year. There's no doubt about it. But he's a guy you can't count on really. For Freddie, he's not a number one starter in Major League Baseball. I don't know if he ever will. There's been games where he's looked like a number one, but that scares me that Freddie is the number one starter. And it's not because of Freddie. It's not his fault that he's the number one starter, but he's been elevated to that spot. Okay, I'm sure all these guys think they're number one starters. Okay, everybody probably thinks in one form or another they can be. But Freddie Peralta, especially maybe on the Pittsburgh Pirates, he could be a number one starter. But I would feel more comfortable with Freddie in the number 3 hole. Okay. Unless he makes a significant jump this year. But at times he did last year. He pitched well, but not consistent, not ready, maybe ever to be a number one starter for the Milwaukee Brewers. So he's the number one guy. So who's the number 2 in this rotation? Is it Wade Miley? A guy who, well, they non-tendered. Well, they didn't pick up the option on his contract. He didn't pick up the option on his contract. That's what it was. And he came back and signed the deal. Wade Miley, we're talking about a 38, 39-year-old pitcher who's had his best moments, save a no-hitter with the Houston Astros, his best moments with the best years with the Milwaukee Brewers. But we're relying on a guy who's getting up there in age. And yeah, he's had 2 solid years in 2 different spans with the Brewers. But that's a little scary. But he's probably in the middle of that rotation. Who's the number 2 guy? Colin Ray, journeyman pitcher. D.L. Hall, he's got good stuff, was unable to crack that Baltimore Orioles rotation. You got Robert Gasser, Joe Ross, a reclamation project. You have Ashby. Ashby's intriguing. I don't think he'll start off in the rotation, though. May, depending on how he goes through in the spring. But this is a 7 or 8 guys here that I don't know. And obviously, you need pitching, and money buys pitching. You need pitching to win. Freddie Peralta, D.L. Hall, Wade Miley, Colin Ray, Robert Gasser, again, an unknown, projects well from what he's done in the minors, and people think he's going to possibly make the rotation. Joe Ross, Ashby. I don't know. Because when you take Burns and Woodruff off this rotation, man, significant losses. Significant. I can't overstate how much the rotation has taken a hit. Moving Freddie from 3 to 1, and then everybody else falling into place. The Brewers are in a hurt in their starting rotation. Now, I hope some of these guys outperform what I think they'll do. I really do. That they're going to have to need that. The bullpen, I feel good about the bullpen. We'll talk about the bullpen another day, though. Bullpen, man, looks great. But we'll cover that another day. We're covering areas of need right now. In the starting rotation, boy, looking back, I just didn't like them trading Burns. I don't. It's one thing to non-tender Woodruff because you didn't know if you were going to have him anyway this year. But with Burns, and especially what I thought that the package, as I told you before, wasn't significant. There's some people out there, there are some baseball guys out there who think the Brewers got a significant amount. Love what they got for Burns. We're always trading our guys for upside. Controllable upside guys and just hoping that upside comes through. And I guess that's what we're going to do for Burns, the players we got in return for Burns. But the rotation, I think, going into spring training and into the season scares the death out of me. Having Freddie go on opening day and then everything falling into, look at this. D.L. Hall, he's got some nice stuff. Is he your number 2 starter? They want him to start. Colin Ray, certainly not a 2 starter. Gasser, Miley, Joe Ross, and Ashby. All these guys fighting out for their final 4 spots in that rotation. Miley's going to have one of them. Colin Ray will have one. Pat Murphy, I'm just going to be curious to see how he manages this team as well. We'll get into that down the road as well. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. The show brought to you in part by eBay Motors. eBay Motors. I love eBay. I'm telling you, you get some great deals on eBay. And as far as you guys out there who are car geeks, well, passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy and also keeps your ride and or die alive. And with eBay Motors, you get everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, whatever you need, speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. 122 million parts for your car. You'll find exactly what you're looking for, or your motorcycle, with eBay's Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts you need, the prices you want, easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. eBay Motors. Check it out, ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. But I told you, the guy down the street, all good with eBay Motors. He's in his garage working here in his winter garage where he's got the heat in there, working on his car every day. He says eBay is his place to go to. And I trust this guy. Guy's always fixing up in his car. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. How about that crowded outfield spot? We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, Google, Spotify, Apple. Those are some of the major downloads that we're on, the major ones. Of course, you can get us on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop the episode here on Locked On Brewers. And of course, they'll be coming more frequently now that we're starting with the start of spring training this week. I just had to take a quick drink there. You'll see the pictures, the newsreels. It'll get that warm feeling for us who live here in the northern parts and in Wisconsin that we wish we were down there enjoying spring training. But yeah, those first couple of days, it's so casual. And people go down there, man, autographs are easy to get down there. Players are more accessible down there. Such a relaxed atmosphere. They'll take a lot more time with you down there. So yeah, always great. Spring training. That starting outfield. Now here, unlike the rotation, you have an embarrassment of riches in the outfield. Like, who would be your opening day? I ask everybody to guess, who's your opening day starting lineup in the outfield? Now, when I look at this outfield, right now you would have to think. Now, I would have guessed that Garrett Mitchell would have been filling in one of these spots, but most prognosticators, and I'm going to go along with them too, have Yelich in left, Churio in center, and Frelick at right. Now, Churio has got to quote-unquote win the job. I get that in spring training. How is Garrett Mitchell? Would have never guessed he's the odd man out. I mean, he's just too good to keep off the bench or keep off that starting lineup. But you have Churio and Frelick and Yelich in that outfield. Where is Garrett Mitchell going to play? You know, these outfield spots always seem, when you have more outfields, more players than position, it always seems to work out. But right now, Sanchez is my DH. You spent $7 million on him for a reason. That's why I think the Brewers are somehow going to make another move. And what about Joey Wiemer, too? He's part of that equation out there. They have so many outfielders right now that I think another trade is going to be in the works. I think in spring training, I don't think they'll trade Frelick. Certainly not Churio. Yelich, you heard some rumblings in the offseason about him, and maybe he still gets dealt. But when you have Frelick, Churio, Yelich, and Garrett Mitchell, and I'm not going to include Joey Wiemer in this right now because I think Joey Wiemer's got to fix his swing in spring training to earn a spot on this roster. Because if he has a lousy spring training, Wiemer's not seeing Milwaukee. Okay? He's got some things to work on. But these are the four guys fighting for three spots: Mitchell, Yelich, Churio, and Frelick. And you know Yelich is going to be in that opening day lineup if he's on the team. You know that. Churio, I would think is going to be the opening day center fielder, unless he bombs out in spring training. This is all barring an injury as well. So Churio's probably going to be the center fielder. Frelick and right, and Mitchell coming off the bench. I think they might trade Garrett Mitchell or Chrstian Yelich. That's my gut feeling. We could circle back to this down the road. But I'd like to hear in your comment, in my comments, or send me on Twitter, who you think is going to be that? Who's going to be the outfield? Who's going to start? I mean, again, these things always seem to work out. Barring injuries, who would your starting outfield be? Left or right? Right now, Yelich in left. Because Yelich, you got it. Yelich is not, and some of you guys who are downing Yelich, and I get that, are going to say, well, Yelich needs to be on the bench to start the season. No. Still a threat at the plate. Now, do I think Yelich? I don't think he's had as good a season as some people want to say it out. I mean, hit 271 and 19 homers last year. That's not, or 21 homers, whatever it was. Not good enough for me. You know, I'm measuring him up to the old Chrstian Yelich that we used to see. But, you know, he had a bounce back year. Well, he had a bounce back year because he was so bad in those previous 2 years. I was not, and I think I'm in the minority on this, one of those who thought, man, Chrstian Yelich, man, he's back. How many times do we see that during the regular season? But, I guess some of the analytics, I don't pay a tremendous amount to analytics. Okay. All I know is Chrstian Yelich bounced out the second a heck of a lot last year with runners in scoring position. And a lot of times I feel like with bases loaded, a little weak tapper to second. But Yelich should be in the lineup. But was he as great? Did he have a good season last year? Did he have a bounce back season? In my opinion, he didn't. But my bar for him is high. And, again, I judge by guys, well, I'm paying this guy $25, $30 million. I need more than 271 and 19 home runs. We signed this guy thinking we'd expect more out of him. So that's not good enough. But this is what we're going to have to settle for. God, I wish he could be better than that. I really do. So Yelich is going to be your left fielder. Churio, is going to play center. Mark Antanasio is going to say, Pat, I'm paying this guy $10 million a year not to be down to AAA. We're coming off the bench on opening day. We got to play this guy every day. Frelick deserves the right field spot. Wiemer doesn't deserve a spot on the roster just yet. He's got to earn that, in my opinion, and fix a few things. And Garrett Mitchell comes off the bench. Again, I think a trade has got to be in the works for the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't see them, barring injury. Now, if there's an injury, I don't think they'll make a move. But how do you guys see that crowded outfield spot? Man, I just something tells me I can't see Garrett Mitchell on the bench on opening day, coming off the bench as a pinch hitter, or even rotating him. I mean, he's not a platoon guy. Frelick's not a platoon guy. Churio certainly is not going to platoon with anybody. That outfield spot, I think, with 4 or 5 guys, if you want to include Wiemer on the trade block, very interesting. All right, we'll come back. Sounds like the Yankees are very interested in Devin Williams. We'll get to that coming up yet. Touch a little bit on the third base spot as well. Maybe a little Murphy. We'll come right back. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book for a reason. I was telling you about, I hope you cashed in on McCaffrey. And certainly, some of you guys, the over looked bleak yesterday, but it did come through. If you had 46.5. But McCaffrey and the over Kelsey yards definitely came through. But FanDuel they had all the props yesterday. I checked, they had them all. And you know what? It's time to move on to basketball. There's plenty of college basketball. Your first bet with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. $150 if your bet wins. Quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props. It's all there. Your favorite NBA players and teams, all there with America's #1 sports book. That is FanDuel, the official partner of the NBA. College basketball all day Saturday and Sundays. You're going to see a lot of that coming up here in a little bit. It's going to dominate with March Madness. I shouldn't say that. With the college basketball tournament right around the corner. We'll talk more about that as well. But FanDuel is right there for you. FanDuel is right there for you. Get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Take advantage. 7 days a week. Cold months, winter months. What's there to do? Laying a little bit on FanDuel right there. And they are great with payouts as well. Prompt, efficient, professional all the way. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. We're coming right back after this timeout. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Yeah, when Pat Murphy sits down with the media, Kurt Hogue, Todd Rosiak, who are helping provide the eyes and ears for us down at spring training, and giving us information down there. They do. Adam McKelvey, obviously, another one. Those three do a great job down there. Looking forward to their coverage down there, and they'll be sitting down with Pat Murphy and kind of getting a few interesting ideas off of Murphy, what he's planning. Obviously, Murphy's not going to tell us the keys to the kingdom. Not going to tell us that, but maybe his thoughts on rotation, starting rotation, everyday lineups, platoons, crowded outfield. Looking forward to when Pat Murphy has his first conversation with the media down there, with those three in particular, and to see what is in store for the 2024, as my buddy Tim Allen would say, the championship season of Milwaukee Brewers baseball. So third base, I saw some projected lineups with the Milwaukee Brewers have Ortiz at second with Turang coming off the bench. I think Turang is going to be now again, you got spring training to go through, but I think Turang is going to be the opening day second baseman. I see Ortiz fitting over at third base right now, unless they trade Adames, and that could very well be it too. I mean, Adames has not been traded yet, but it's amazing that all our stars are getting traded off a first place team. It's disappointing in some sense. We're stocking up on future talent, meanwhile trying to compete. But third base right now, Ortiz, Tyler Black. Some people think that he's going to be the starting third baseman. Or is it going to be our buddy Andrew Monasterio, who overachieved last year and came through big time for the team? But again, I think Monasterio is more of a utility guy, although he outperformed what I think we thought he was going to do last year. So Ortiz, Black, Monasterio, I believe the three who are going to compete for the third base spot going into camp. Ortiz is going to find his way onto the roster, obviously, and somewhere in the lineup. I feel like he'll be in the opening day lineup. I don't see him at second unless Turang has a horrible spring training. I still see Turang. I don't see them trading Turang at all. But I still see Turang at second base with Ortiz competing for a third base spot. We'll find out what Murphy's got to say here. I could be completely wrong, but that's just my guess. The New York Yankees are said to be interested in trading for Devin Williams. They would give up their number 2 prospect and 2 other prospects. Now, I feel like sometimes the Brewers are playing fantasy baseball on how we can get the best. They got the second best farm system right now. But sometimes that doesn't mean a hill of beans if these guys don't translate into major talent. Okay. So if they get 3 more prospects for the Yankees, including the number 2 guy, stock it up on that farm system. Okay. And I know that's the route that the Brewers have to go, but I feel like they're playing fantasy baseball with their farm system. Devin Williams. Now their bullpen is so good. At one point, I'd have been okay with trading Devin Williams, but with the rotation the way it is, you're going to lean heavily on your bullpen. I don't think I want to go down that road just yet, trading Devin. Maybe at the trading deadline, if we're not in it, we have no, if we're clearly out of the wild card in the playoffs, and that's a possibility. I mean, that's a possibility. The Brewers could be traders at the trading deadline. I'm telling you, because that rotation, I'm scared at. I don't want to trade Devin just yet. Although if you get 3 prospects for him, they're clearly not re-signing Williams, giving him a long-term contract extension. They're clearly not going to do that. We've seen that with Josh Hader, and I think with Williams, they're going to deal him eventually. If they do deal him, Uribe or Payamps will be your closer. 2 guys untested. Payamps had a great year last year. Uribe, can he get the ball over the plate on a consistent basis? Could he be the closer? Well, I think that's what you'd have to do, obviously, if you traded Devin Williams. But that report continues to surface. There's reports out of New York. I talked to a buddy of mine who covers the Yankees. He says, yeah, there's rumblings that the Yankees are in search of a closer. And obviously those big markets look at the teams that are small markets and say, hey, we'll trade some prospects for Devin Williams. We'll see if they go down that road. Again, trading Williams sends a bad message to the fan base. I get it. I do not want this team to sink and go all in prospects and sink in this division. You see already where they picked 3rd or 4th in division. And again, that doesn't really account for much, but I would hold Devin Williams until the trading deadline and see where we go from there. Because there was, if they had kept Woodruff, or if they had kept a Burns, okay, I'd feel a little bit better about the starting rotation and maybe trade Devin Williams. But at this point, you're leaning so hard on that bullpen now. And the bullpen is a strength. That with that rotation that we talked about earlier, it's a little scary. All right, we are getting ready for the start of spring training. Guys will be trickling in here the next couple of days. We'll have some news and notes and all that. And of course, Murphy will have a sit down with the media down there. We'll talk about that as all. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time. That outfield position, crowded outfield up there. We'll see what happens there. I still think a trade's going to happen. The starting rotation scares me. Scares the death out of me, actually. And Devin Williams, is he on the trade block or not? We'll get those answered, I'm sure, here in the next few weeks. My name, Chuck Freeman. Locked On Brewers, Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. Of course, you go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody. This is Chuck Freeman on Locked On Brewers.